Today's mindful moment.
Have you ever wondered if a drawing could create itself? And if it did, what would that tell us about how we become aware, like how we become conscious?
Wow, that's a fascinating thought.
It is, right. And that's kind of the core of what we're diving into today with this book. Gödel, Escher, Bach. It's a bit of a mouthful. It's by Douglas Hofstadter.
Oh yeah, I've heard of this. It won a Pulitzer, right?
It did back in '79.
And it's this really dense book that connects all these seemingly totally different fields.
It really does. Math, art, music, even dives into how our minds work. Cognitive science.
And philosophy, too.
Yeah, exactly. It's pretty mind-blowing. And what we're trying to do is, well, you sent me some stuff about it, some notes and things, and we're going to try to really dig into the core ideas here.
Absolutely. It's a rich text. There's a lot to unpack.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
So at the heart of this book is this metaphor, the golden braid.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
So picture, how a braid is all intertwined.
Yeah. Hofstadter takes these three figures, Gödel the mathematician, Escher the artist, and Bach the composer.
Right.
And he kind of weaves their work together.
Okay.
And what emerges are these fundamental patterns, these like almost universal patterns that show up in their work, like self-reference, recursion.
Recursion, so like things repeating in on themselves.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then this idea of like how meaning just kind of pops up out of seemingly unrelated things.
Emergent meaning.
Yeah, emergent meaning, exactly. And the golden part of the metaphor, it has these layers too, right? Like the golden ratio, timeless value, interconnectedness. There's a lot packed into just that one image of a braid.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, no, I see what you mean about a lot to unpack.
Right. And one of the really big, almost radical ideas in the book is this concept of strange loops.
Strange loops, huh? Okay, that sounds interesting.
So imagine like you're moving through the levels of some kind of system, right? Like you're climbing a hierarchy.
Okay, I'm with you. But then, as you keep climbing, you somehow end up right back where you started.
Why, like a circular kind of thing?
Exactly. Like it's a loop, but it's a strange loop. It's this paradoxical feedback, this self-referential kind of thing.
Okay, I think I get the idea, but do you have a concrete example?
No, tons. The best way to think about it is to look at Escher's drawings, actually. Like, have you ever seen that one called Drawing Hands?
Vaguely,
Yeah, it's these two hands, right? And they're each drawing the other. So you get this visual paradox. It's like, well, which hand came first? Where does the creation actually start? It's mind mending.
Yeah, I see. Like a chicken and egg thing almost.
Exactly. And then there's another one called Ascending and Descending. That one's with the staircase, right? And it's this impossible staircase where you can like keep climbing forever, but you're always ending up back at the same level. It messes with your whole sense of visual logic.
It's like defying gravity in art.
Right. And Bach does something similar, but with music.
Oh, how so?
He's got these things called like endlessly rising canons.
Endlessly rising. So the music keeps going up.
Yeah. So like he uses these really clever key changes, these modulations, and it creates this auditory illusion that the melody's constantly climbing higher and higher in pitch. But then somehow it all resolves back to where it began. It's like the musical equivalent of Escher's staircase.
So both playing with our perception of reality.
Exactly. And then we have Gödel. And this is where things get, I think, even deeper.
Okay, what did he do? Well,
he was a mathematician. And his big discovery was this thing called the Incompleteness theorem. And this is where, the implications start to get really profound, I think.
Okay, lay it on me. What's so profound about this theorem?
So basically, he demonstrated that any system of math, like any formal system of math that's complex enough to do, like basic arithmetic, there are always going to be some true statements in that system that you can't actually prove within the system itself.
Wait, so that something's true, but you can't prove it? That's weird.
It is weird, right? It's like it shows us that even in the most like rigorous, logically airtight systems, there are these inherent limitations.
And how did he like figure this out? That's pretty wild.
His method was really ingenious. So he basically created this mathematical statement that essentially refers to itself. It says, this statement cannot be proven within this system.
Wait, so it's talking about itself. That's wild.
Right. It's a self-referential statement. And so think about it. If the statement is true,
right,
then by what it's saying, it can't be proven within the system. But if it's false...
Oh, I see. Then it can be proven, which means...
Exactly. It means the system contradicts itself. It's like this logical... The system itself can't untangle.
It's almost like the system has a blind spot, like it can't fully see itself.
Yeah. Exactly. And what's amazing is, like, Gödel's working with this really abstract mathematical stuff, right? But it resonates so deeply with what Hofstadter's trying to do in this book.
Okay, how?
It's this idea of self-reference again, right? Like in math, this capacity for a system to refer to itself and then generate these truths that it can't actually prove.
Yeah.
That becomes like this crucial element in understanding how complex systems, maybe even our own minds, how they produce these properties that kind of emerge out of nowhere.
Okay, so like with Escher's drawings, it's this visual paradox, right? But with Gödel, it's this logical paradox almost.
Exactly. And to really bring it back to Escher, like there's this other drawing, Print Gallery.
Oh, yeah, I think I've seen that one.
So it's got this young man in it, right? And he's looking at this picture in a gallery. But as your eye follows, like what's in the picture, it recursively loops back on itself. Like it becomes the gallery the man is standing in.
Oh, wow. Like a visual representation of that Gödel statement almost.
Right. It's this visual demonstration of the kind of self-referential paradoxes that Gödel's exploring in the realm of pure logic.
So Escher is like giving us a way to see these abstract ideas.
Exactly. And then with Bach, we have the musical offering is a great example.
Okay, I'm not as familiar with Bach's work. What's special about this offering?
So King Frederick the Great gave Bach this theme, right? Like a musical theme.
Okay.
And Bach took it and he created this mind-blowing array of canons and fugues, all based on that one theme.
Wow.
And what it shows is how, like, from a simple set of rules,
right,
these incredibly intricate, these beautiful structures can emerge.
Like an emergent property of following those rules.
Exactly. And the endlessly rising canon we talked about earlier, that's in the musical offering. And that's a really, really clear musical example of this strange loop idea.
So he uses the rules of music to create this loop that never ends, but also kind of does.
Yeah. It feels like perpetual ascent, but then it resolves back to where it started in a way that feels both surprising and inevitable. It's a beautiful demonstration of how these self-referential structures can create these seemingly impossible effects.
It's like he's playing with time itself almost.
He really is. And this brings us to the bigger picture of, formal systems in general. So when Hofstadter talks about formal systems, what exactly does he mean?
He's essentially talking about any system that operates according to specific rules. Like, think of a game like chess, right? You've got the pieces, you've got the board, and you have very specific rules about how you can move those pieces. Math is kind of like that too, right? You've got your axioms, you've got your rules of inference, and you can manipulate symbols according to those rules.
So math is a formal system.
Exactly. And Hofstadter uses these like simplified formal systems throughout the book to really illustrate how deductions are made. And more importantly, how even these seemingly perfect, logically airtight systems can run into limitations, just like Gödel showed us. If you're finding all this talk about formal systems and self-reference, fascinating. There's this YouTube channel I follow sometimes. It's called Mindful Moments, and our podcasts. They do these like AI audiobook analyses. They go pretty deep into stuff like this.
Cool. I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
So we've got these strange loops. We've got these self-referential patterns popping up in math, in art, in music. And then Hofstadter starts talking about artificial intelligence, which, makes sense given that we're talking about systems and rules and all that. So what are the big questions that GAB raises about AI?
Well, the big one is, like, if intelligence really boils down to just following rules, then can a machine ever truly think? Is there some fundamental difference between just manipulating symbols according to rules, which is what we call syntax, and actually understanding the meaning of those symbols, which is semantics?
Yeah, I see. Like, can you have meaning without understanding?
Exactly. And can consciousness itself just emerge from a system that's simply following instructions? Like, those are the really big questions that Hofstadter's wrestling with here.
And how does he approach those questions?
He's not so much interested in, like, no single ant has, like, a blueprint for the entire colony or understands the really complex things they do as a group.
Like building those elaborate nests.
Right, or foraging for food in these, like, super efficient ways.
Okay, yeah.
So you have all these simple individuals following these simple rules,
Uh,
and then out of that, this incredibly sophisticated behavior emerges.
so the intelligence is kind of like spread out across the whole colony.
Yeah, it's not localized in any one hand. It's an emergent property of the system as a whole.
Wow, that's pretty amazing.
It is. And Hofstadter suggests that consciousness might work in a similar way. Like our brains are these incredibly complex networks of neurons, right?
Yeah.
And each neuron is pretty simple on its own, but it's the interactions between those neurons, the sheer complexity of those interactions that give rise to our subjective experience of being, like a self, an I.
So it's not that any single neuron is conscious.
It's that the whole system, with all its self-referential activity, its ability to model itself, that's what creates the I.
And Hofstadter calls that I a mirage.
Yeah, especially in his later book, I Am a Strange Loop. He calls it this mirage that perceives itself, which is, I think, a beautiful way of putting it.
Because it's like, it's there, but it's also not.
Right. It's a materialist perspective in that it grounds consciousness in these physical processes of the brain. But it's also non-reductionist because it's saying that this sense of selfhood is not just the sum of the parts. It's something more that emerges from the interactions of those parts.
Okay, so just to like recap some of the big ideas we've touched on from G, we've got this concept of self-reference, right?
Right.
And how that can create paradoxes in complex systems, and these strange loops as these fundamental patterns that we see in consciousness, in creativity. And then the idea that meaning itself can kind of pop up out of nowhere through these structural parallels, these isomorphisms. And of course, Gödel showed us that even the most logically rigorous systems have these inherent limitations. And then finally, this mind-blowing argument that consciousness itself might be this emergent strange loop arising from the activity of our brains.
That's a great summary. And I think it's important to address one common misunderstanding people have about Jeeb.
What's that?
A lot of folks, and it's understandable, think that the book is really about the relationship between math, art, and music.
Right. Like on the surface, that's kind of what it looks like.
Right. But Hofstadter is very clear that he's using those three areas as examples, as frameworks for understanding something much deeper.
Which is?
How cognition itself emerges from the mechanisms of the brain.
Yeah.
He's not interested in just pointing out, like, superficial similarities between a Bach fugue and an Escher drawing.
Right.
He's interested in the underlying principles, the self-reference, the recursion, the emerging complexity. Those are the things that they both embody, and that he thinks might ultimately explain consciousness itself.
And Hofstadter himself he's kind of a walking embodiment of this multidisciplinary approach, right?
Oh, absolutely. He's got this really strong background in math and physics. He even discovered the Hofstadter butterfly.
The what?
The Hofstadter butterfly. It's a thing in physics.
Okay.
But he's also deeply into music and languages, so he's a true boundary crosser.
Yeah.
He's always making these connections between seemingly totally different fields.
And that's, I think, what makes G.E. so unique. He wasn't afraid to step outside the confines of any one discipline to try and tackle this really huge question of how mind arises from matter.
And that's why, decades later, it's still such an important book. It's still inspiring new ways of thinking about consciousness, intelligence, about what it means to understand something.
And it leaves us with this, like, really big question, right? If our own sense of self, if our own understanding, if those things emerge from these complex self-referential patterns,
right,
then what does that say about, like, how we view ourselves? What does it say about the potential for other complex systems, whether they're biological or even artificial, to have self-awareness?
It really makes you think about all the loops, the strange loops, and the more familiar ones that are shaping our lives and the world around us.
Absolutely. And it makes you want to keep thinking about how meaning and understanding emerge from this incredible dance of patterns in these complex systems, It's
a constant unfolding.
It is. So if you're listening to this and you're feeling that spark of curiosity about Gödel, Escher, Bach, make sure you subscribe and share this with anyone else who might be interested. There's a link in the show notes where you can buy Hofstadter's book if you want to really dive deep. But most importantly, don't stop thinking critically about the patterns and the paradoxes that are shaping how we understand the world.